Prospero, why we think that prospective registration is a good thing, a bit about how we actually implemented Prospero and the evaluation that we undertook at 1 year, and then just briefly where we are today and a little glimpse of the future for Prospero. And then hopefully there'll be time for questions and discussion at the end. So about 3 or 4 years ago, the importance of prospective registration of systematic review protocols was being increasingly recognised and demonstrated in the literature, culminating in the publication of the PRISMA 2009 statement and checklist, which included as one of the reporting items, the preferred reporting items, as registration details for a protocol. PRISMA statement recognised that actually there were limited opportunities for registration, and that the Cochrane and Campbell collaboration, while they registered their protocols, it was limited to their own organisations. The PRISMA statement actually referenced the CRD databases, where we include ongoing health technology assessments, including systematic reviews, and Cochrane protocols in the DARE database. And as a result of that, we started getting requests to register systematic reviews, systematic review protocols. So we decided that we were in a good position to be able to do this, and that it fitted well with our remit as a Centre for Systematic Reviewing, and that we had the existing IT infrastructure and database platform through the CRD databases to support a register of systematic review protocols. So we got together an international advisory group, and that brought together some expertise from trials registers with Davina Gersey, Cochrane and Mike Clark, who chairs the advisory group, David Mower and Mark Pettigrew, who has a background in public health, Leslie Stewart, who's the director of CRD and is with me today, so if you've got any questions for her later on, that's fine. And Leslie, of course, was the person who said, right, let's do it. So the advisory group decided that the best thing to do to start off with would be to carry out an international consultation to establish a minimum data set. And this is really where the optimum in comes in. So it was a consensus to ensure that we were collecting the optimum amount of information, just the right amount and not too much. It also aimed to give credibility to the register when it was launched, and it also enabled us to promote our intention and gather support and find out just how much support there was for registration in principle. That all happened in 2010, and in February 2011 we actually launched the Prospero registration site with a ministerial statement from Lord Howe in the UK, a podcast from Dame Sally Davis, who's the Director General of R&D in the UK, and at an international meeting held in Vancouver, which was sponsored by the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. So going back to why we went to all that trouble, systematic review evidence impacts on health provision. There is no doubt about that. It's widely accepted and widely promoted that systematic reviews provide the best evidence for decision making. They have the potential to impact on decisions that affect the care of many people and to have significant budgetary impact. And the associated responsibility is to ensure that the best methods and conduct are carried out in order to assure systematic reviews are robust and free from bias. So detecting and mitigating bias in included studies is central to systematic review. Influences and pressures on the reporting are the same for clinical trials as and systematic reviews. I think there have been discussions in the past about whether there's the same ethical imperative, but I would argue that there is, given the use that systematic review evidence is put to. So systematic review protocols can ensure that review methods are transparent and reproducible, and that adherence should help avoid or at least minimize bias. Changes in emphasis between the protocol and the completed review have the potential to bias review findings. And evidence that reviews change between the protocol and the final report have been demonstrated by Chris Silardi and colleagues, who found that 43 out of 47 completed Cochrane reviews had major changes compared to their protocols. Many of those were related to methods and outcomes. And there's also evidence of reporting biases similar to those observed for clinical trials. So Jamie Kirkham and colleagues found that 14 out of 64 Cochrane reviews were discrepant in at least one outcome from protocol specification. And the discrepant outcomes added or upgraded were more likely to be statistically significant than the outcomes which had not changed status. So registration can help by providing a permanent public record of the key elements of planned review, including the inclusion criteria and outcomes. It allows published results to be compared with what was planned at protocol registration and judge whether any discrepancies might have introduced bias. Readers can compare published results with the PROSPERO registration record via the unique registration number that we issue. And registration allows amendments and maintains an audit trail, because we have to recognise that it's not unreasonable to make changes and that there are good reasons why things change. We just need to be transparent about the reasons for that, and the process allows authors to do that. So again, in avoiding bias, registration in PROSPERO is prospective, and it takes place when the protocol is finalised, but ideally before eligibility screening has started, which we judge to be the first stage at which we can start to try and identify whether subsequent bias has been introduced into the process. Publication reduces the opportunity for post hoc tweaking. Tweaking is, again, maybe necessary, but it needs to be transparent and justified. We recognise that it will not stop deliberate cheating. We don't have a way of avoiding that. But we do openly display the dates when a record is first posted, when the review is completed and when it's published, and any amendments to those dates. So this doesn't in itself prevent overt misuse, but it's something that users of the records should bear in mind when they're looking at it. And we would take the stance that falsification of information would be a deliberate act of scientific misconduct with potentially serious and damaging consequences. The other major aim of prospective registration is to avoid unintended duplication. Systematic reviews can be time-consuming and are costly, and there are often duplicate or very similar reviews undertaken. So commissioners and researchers may be unaware of ongoing reviews, and as Chico et al. Demonstrated that reviews are not always published. And then, of course, unintended duplication is economically wasteful. We're very careful to say unintended duplication or unplanned duplication because, of course, there are times when it's justifiable. So, again, registration can help by providing a public listing of sorry.
We lost you for a minute.
Okay. Yeah. So by registration, right? Sorry, we seem to be coming in and out. Sorry about that. PROSPERO provides a public listing of ongoing systematic reviews and of completed reviews as of February 2011, irrespective of publication status. So we already know that we're potentially helping the reviews that are never published get out into the public domain. And registration should allow those that are planning reviews to check whether there are any reviews already in the pipeline or completed but unpublished in their area of interest, which means that they can then decide whether or not to proceed. We already know of one commissioner who identified a review registered on PROSPERO about restricted elimination diet in ADHD, which overlapped with something that they were about to commission. So they've been able to put that on hold pending the results of the review, and that money can be redirected to another review if it answers the question that they were asking. Looking at what we then did about implementation, we aim to make it as straightforward as possible because researchers already have enough hoops to jump through, and we wanted to make the whole system as accessible as possible while still achieving our aims. So it's obviously web-based, it's free to register and free to search. Users create and update their own records. The record content is the responsibility of the review author, and our administrators check for sense but do not peer review, which is why we're able to offer this as a free service. As I've said, we have an audit trail of amendments that's maintained, and registration record is mesh indexed by the PROSPERO team to facilitate searching. Excuse me. We have automated as many administration tasks as possible, and there are some more automations in the pipeline. And most importantly, I think we've based the data set on an agreed international optimum set. So the aim of registration is simply to capture those attributes of a review that are likely to be important in the avoidance of bias, and to provide enough information to help people planning reviews in a similar area decide whether or not to proceed. We don't seek to capture all the information that should be included in a systematic review protocol. The sources for development of the initial itemised list, we used a range of leading sources to formulate that list. And it is obviously very much biased towards systematic reviews of effective interventions. The minimum data set identified 22 required fields, and these included some key administrative fields and the key review design fields. And there were a couple of fields that were left out of this list, which we will, in the fullness of time, be coming back to review. And these were context, which is very important in public health reviews. And the other one is data extraction methods, which was a very borderline item for inclusion in the mandatory list, but we were trying to keep the number of mandatory fields down to a minimum. So we have 18 optional fields. There were two that that haven't been entered at all. One was economic evaluations, because it was felt that on the whole it should be clear from other fields whether the systematic review involved an economic evaluation. So it should appear in the review questions, searches, the study inclusion criteria, the outcomes, etc. So it was felt that a separate field wasn't necessary. And it was also felt that it was hard enough to decide what the anticipated completion date was without actually asking what the anticipated publication date would be. So we don't ask for that until you've actually completed the review. The initial scope we set because this was a new venture, and because this was the area that we were most comfortable with, was the effects of interventions and strategies to prevent, diagnose, treat and monitor health conditions for which there's a health-related outcome. But our long-term aim is to include details of all ongoing systematic reviews that have a health-related outcome in the broadest sense. And I'll talk a bit more about that shortly. So our other eligibility criteria, we set out to, our ideal is that reviews should be registered before screening against eligibility criteria commences. But we recognise that to get started, we would accept reviews that, as long as they haven't progressed beyond completion of data extraction. We also didn't want to duplicate, so we've said that new Cochrane protocols would be loaded into PROSPERO, but they shouldn't be registered independently. And we also, as a result of the Delphi exercise, excluded reviews of methodological issues, reviews of reviews, scoping reviews, and reviews of animal studies. So after a year of operation, the advisory group decided that we should actually just review the utility of the registration process. So we looked at the statistics for the users who have registered with us, we looked at the usage of the website, and we did a survey of those registered users. And based on the 232 responses that we got, 80% said that the registration fields were relevant to their review, 99% found that joining and navigation was easy or very easy, and 96% found that the turnaround time was good or excellent. We do aim for a 5 working day turnaround time, but I think on average it's between a day and a half. And 80% found that the supporting materials were helpful or very helpful. And we were pleased that quite a lot of people said that they hadn't needed to use them, so that was really nice as well. 99% rated their overall experience of registering as good or excellent, and 79% of those who could remember how long it took them said that they'd completed the registration form in 60 minutes or less. So we concluded that the first year of PROSPERO has shown that registration of systematic review protocols is feasible, and it's not overly burdensome for those registering their reviews. As a result of the evaluation, we've reviewed the scope and the eligibility. So we are now including methodological reviews where there is a clinically useful outcome. So this has to be an outcome that can be used in clinical practice. And the other type of review that we're now going to include are systematic reviews of reviews. So as long as they are following a systematic review methodology, then we will include them. We will still exclude scoping reviews, reviews of animal studies, and obviously methodological reviews with no clinically useful outcome. We've always taken the stance that retrospective registration is not an option, and we are aware that some RCT registries did initially allow retrospective registration, but we understand that some of them are still doing that, and we felt quite strongly that this defeats the whole purpose of the register. So we compromised with allowing reviews that hadn't progressed beyond the completion of data extraction. But we do plan on moving this back to our ideal timing so that reviews are registered before screening against eligibility criteria commences. We have a number of planned improvements to the functionality. We're going to facilitate saving a copy of both the draft and the submitted form as a PDF and as a word processing document. We got quite a number of people coming back to us saying that they'd actually used registering on Prospero to formulate their protocol, and that it would be useful to actually be able to save that as a Word document to then complete the rest of it, and also to enable the named author to named contact to actually share the draft with other authors so that they were all happy with the submission before clicking the button. We're also going to automate the reminders to update. We have a new administration interface which should make life at this end for us a lot easier and help us give you more timely automated updates, reminders, which again is something that's been requested. We're also going to review the sequence for updating and making revisions, because at the moment the fields that you're asked to go and update are dotted around, so we're looking at ways in which we can actually pull all of those together and make life easier for you. And we're also hoping to offer a sign-up for alerts for new titles, because we have now passed the 1,000 registration mark, and so we feel that there's enough there to start promoting Prospero as a site to find out what's going on. So since February, in February last year, we have over 1,000 registrations from 56 different countries. Our cumulative totals for registrations demonstrate that in our first year we had about 300 registrations. This year we've had over 600, 900 registrations. So we're going in the right direction, and we're pleased with that. As you would expect, the majority of the reviews on the database are ongoing, but we are starting to get completed and a few published reviews records now coming through, which is good. And our visitors to the Prospero site and searching, we have over 15,000 visitors and over 1 million page views in this year alone. So other future developments include the automatic upload of new Cochrane review protocols, and we're hoping that this will be finalised early in the new year. We're going to continue to work with funding and commissioning agencies to encourage registration, and we're also going to start promoting Prospero as a tool for avoiding duplication of reviews, so to people who commission and undertake reviews. We are also working on expanding the scope over time to include, as we said, our long-term aim of including systematic reviews for which there's a health-related outcome in the broadest sense. And one of the things that we will be doing there is looking at whether we need to develop new templates to accommodate the types of reviews that are undertaken in areas such as the social sciences and public health. We will be looking at the utility of the search facility because obviously now that we have more content, and as the content gets more complicated, we need to make sure that the search is working at its optimum for those. And we will also be working on a program of methodological research. And I can now give you a sneak preview of the new branding, which again will be launched early in the new year. And again, there should be some new functionality with that. And part of the rearrangement takes into account some of the suggestions that we got back through the user survey. I've included the references to the papers that I've talked about, and that's the end of what I'm going to say for now. Thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, Leslie and I would be delighted to take them.
Thank you so much, Alison. That was wonderful. Are there any questions? Okay, we have one here from Gerald Garten.
Hi, Alison. This is Gerald. Thank you very much. This was really great. We've actually met in Freiburg a few weeks ago.
I remember. Hello.
Hello. So my question, you mentioned that Cochrane protocols are automatically uploaded. Most of us are working for